Welcome back to your D122 W1 to part 2 of our Jiffy Box, our project 2 that we're working with in Figma. We're doing pretty much the vector and text layout in Figma, and then we're going to take it into Photo P and add our photographic imagery and do some effects in there like we did with the Ultra Clean. So where I was here is I found a bunch of fonts to use as my display or title font for Jiffy, some examples that might have the same look and feel as the original but be able to improve on it just a little bit more. And the one I kind of narrowed in on a little bit just to work with is this one. This one is Wendy1 and it has a very distinctive J. I may want to change that just a little bit, although I may not. So because I may not want to, you may want to do this. You may want to first group it, Command G or Control G, and I'm going to hold down Option and move it off the page. That way I have the original in case I turn this into outlines or anything like that. The nice thing about grouping it, when this is a group, is you could use the scale tool and it'll all scale together, even though they're two separate text boxes in there. So I'll make this nice and big, and what I might do also is use one of my plugins. Now, let me just show you something before I do anything with this. Let's just say I was working with this one, which is Holtwood 1. I just want to show you one of the plugins. If I go to Plugin, SkewDat, the way this one works is you just have a little slider here, and you just do that. You just slide it up a little. So if you want to slide it up a little, 10 degrees, anything like that. I don't know if you could put in the number, or if you just have to use the slider, 10 degrees, something like that. You could hit apply, and now you have kind of a skewed version of it that you could work with. And now that's not rotated, that's a skewed version. Then you could even squash it. Now you can't squash it until you turn it into outlines. So you could turn it into outlines, but for now, I just want to show you could do that. So that's the SkewDat. So I'm just going to undo that. Anyway, let me put that over there. All right, so here's this thing here. And I want to work with this a little bit, so I'm going to convert it to outlines. Now, outlines means it's no longer a typeface. It's no longer a font. It's just vector paths. And we do that in Illustrator and any other vector program. And what you could do here is try one of the plugins. Now, I have it grouped, so I think it should work for the group, but we'll see. I'm going to go here to Plugins, and I'm going to use Really Flatten Vectors because it gets rid of any overlapping shapes. So I'm going to do that. And let's see what happens here. And that worked fine. It's a vector. There's a little icon there that shows it's vector. So if I edit it, you'll see all the anchor points. And then I hit done if I don't want to edit it. So I mentioned editing this a little bit, and I'll zoom in a little bit. And maybe I don't want this in so far. Maybe I'll move this, something like that. Maybe I'll move it down. Whatever you want. Let me zoom in more. You could go in here. Now I have this anchor point here. Remember, to delete an anchor point in Figma, you have to use Shift Delete. Now it didn't delete. Why didn't it delete? Because I think I'm on a handle. So let me go in here and get right on the point itself and do Shift Delete. There it is. So now I might like this a little better. I could move this in. I could grab this handle, maybe arch it just a little bit, and maybe it doesn't have that wide look to it. Maybe you want a little bit of it, maybe you don't. But anyway, that's what we have there. You could bring this in a little. Maybe you don't want it so long. Maybe you wanted a rounded end on it. Maybe you could use the bend tool, round off the end, make it a little roundy there or something. Now the other ones are kind of square on the end, but you know, make it your own. Maybe you want to round it off a little bit on the end. Do something like that. That's fine. Maybe you don't. Just giving you some options here, and then hit done. So you can change the vectors if you want. I don't know if I really like the roundy ends there, but I'm just showing you something here. Now, let's say I wanted to skew this whole thing just a little bit. So now it's no longer a font. I can't change the typeface of it. But I could go to Plugins and SkewDat, and I'll see how this works. I'll go up just a little bit, just maybe almost 5% maybe. And I'll hit Apply, and that's it. So that has kind of a cool look. And maybe that's all I need. I could still scale it up. You have to hold Shift in here to keep it in proportion. So I'll scale it up, and maybe that's kind of a cool look that I want for Jiffy. Maybe that's it. And then maybe America's Favorite is going to go in here and be in a different typeface. Now, you could use something plain. One of the plain ones I always like is Roboto because it has a lot of different thicknesses to it. You could look for something scripty. You could go up here and go to Categories and go into Handwriting and turn off the other ones. Put on Handwriting. And you could type like America's or what are we going to put here? America's favorite or something. Maybe you want something, a script, to kind of counteract the straightness of this. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. You could get away with, something like Crimson Pro. You could go into Crimson Pro and put it in a nice bold italic. They have a really nice bold italic, extra bold italic, and then use the scale tool and make it bigger. I mean, look how nice that looks. You don't always need a script font. Sometimes an italic will kind of have a nice look. So, and that way you're not using anything that's competing too much with this. Maybe America's favorite could go across here on an angle a little bit. Maybe not. Just kind of giving you some ideas here to start. Maybe America's favorite could be in a little banner up here, and that could be white, and it could be a little arch up here. And we may do something like that. And maybe all-purpose baking mix would be in here, and maybe we'll use like a rubato narrow or something like that. I'll go in here and I'll get off my scale tool and I'll put it back on the move tool and I'll use rubato. That's always a good one. You could look for more, and they do have rubato condensed. I'm going to see if they have it condensed in here. In the regular rubato, they do have condensed. They have a whole bunch of condensed in here already. So I'm going to use condensed bold and see how that looks. Now that could have a nice little look to be there in that nook. There's more rhyming. Nice look to have in the nook. Now I'm going to rotate this. I'm not going to skew it. I'm going to rotate it, although you could skew it, but I'm going to put this in here, and this could have a nice look with that color. And maybe that's all you need. How nice is that? That has a nice little look there, and maybe America's favorite is something that you use. Like, that could be our logo right there. I mean, this is the original logo, so I'm not doing a whole lot, and we could certainly add some outlines and strokes or whatever. Now, I could do something like that with all these other fonts. You know, this one could have a similar kind of look. This Jiffy one. A lot of cool stuff here to kind of look at. Even when I look at this J, I think, well, maybe the J should come down straighter a little bit. Maybe this one should be unskewed or something. You know, the way it is. Maybe it should come follow the I a little bit. There's a little bit of a gap there that I don't like as much. And we could adjust that. And if I wanted to do that, let me see if I could. The nice thing is there's not a whole lot of anchor points. So I could actually go in here. I double click to edit, and I'm editing the anchor points. I could go in here and I could kind of move just those anchor points over. Let's see if I can. Let me highlight them again. I don't want to get that one on the eye. And let me just use my arrow key. I'll use my arrow key. Kind of nudge that over. Actually, that's not too bad. Now, that won't work with all fonts because sometimes you have tons of anchor points and it's really hard. But I want to keep the gap here a little more narrow. So I'm going to move that over. And then I could go onto this anchor point and pull this in just a little and do something like that. And maybe this, is that an anchor point or a handle? That's a handle, so I don't really need that. And this one, I don't need these handles anymore, so I'm just going to drag them right into the point. I don't think I liked it arced, curved like that, so I'm going to bring them in just a little. And this one, I might bring in the points just a little. I can still keep them rounded a little bit, but I think that looks a little better. And now I could hit done. Whenever you work with anchor points, hit done. Maybe I'll move this up a little. Maybe I'll move this up a little. Maybe even out a little. So it has kind of that wider top and narrow bottom. Maybe I'll do that just a little bit. I guess that's what it originally had, but I'm just kind of bringing it back just a little. If I could do that. If you don't get it, just undo it and try it again. There. That's not bad. That doesn't look too bad. You could always round the top of this too if you want. Take this bendy tool. You want to round the top of it a little bit. Round it down. Whatever. There's just a little nook on the bottom. Maybe that looks okay. So I'll hit done. So that's what I'm doing for that. I could put little bendy things in here. Where did I get the idea of the bendy thing? I got it from the eye. So I could go over here and go in here and hit edit. Now, I'm in the group right now, so I have to get in the group and I have to double click. So now I'm double clicking. Now I can take this bendy tool and just drag a little and go over here and just drag a little. Now I have a similar look, and I'm making it more kind of unique. I could bend this up a little if I want, right here. Maybe. You know? Who knows? And I'll hit done. All right, and I'll zoom out again. So that's kind of my look. I'll take this, I'll move it over a little bit. I don't have to skew it, just nudging it over. That looks okay. And I think that's kind of a decent look. So I have a decent start here. I have America's favorite up here. I could look at scripty fonts to use for that. Now, I might want to type America's favorite up here. and look through some. Now, what would I want to do? I'd want to keep it clean. I wouldn't want to have it too decorative so that it competed with this. Even this one, actually, the Crimson Pro, it's extra bold. I would probably just go with bold, maybe even semi-bold. Doesn't look bad. I don't know if you need it that bold there. I just wouldn't want it really light, but I think that looks good. It doesn't compete with this, and that's all you'd need. I mean, maybe this could be in that same kind of font up there. You wouldn't have to repeat this font, the one that we're using for Jiffy, necessarily, but you know, this quality and value since 1930, we could put that somewhere as well, maybe in that same font, whatever we use here. But if you want to look at some script fonts, feel free. Here's Pacifico, looks pretty cool. I'll make a copy of this, or maybe I'll put this in Pacifico just to see what it looks like. I'll change it from Inter, I'll put in Pacifico. Now, that's a little harder to read at smaller sizes. I'll just go down here to the point size, I'll put it up, 96, see what that looks like. It's a little harder to read. 1930 doesn't come out well. Sometimes numbers don't go in the script, but that's not bad. I mean, if I put that in Pacifico, that's not bad. It doesn't, I don't think it competes with that too much. It has a nice contrast to it, actually. And if you put it in red, that's not too bad. You know, Pacifico isn't bad. Now, that's just one of the first few I looked at. Now, I wouldn't want to use anything that looked too formal. This is a little more casual. That's a little more formal. This is casual. That's not bad. Satisfy is not bad. Try Satisfy. And always make a copy so you can compare. Option drag or Alt drag, and then go down here, and I'll put this in Satisfy. What does that look like? And you know, move this away, put this up near that. How does that look? Doesn't look bad. It's a little on the lighter side, so you'd have to be careful with it, not getting too small, but that certainly doesn't compete with it. I mean, if you put something like that, it actually kind of goes nicely. So just want to point that out. Now, every time I undo something, just remember I'm using Command Z, and on Windows you use Control Z. So these aren't bad ideas here. Then maybe America's Favorite could be in one of them. We could try it out. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. I'm going to put a little arch up here, but because my previous video was so long, I thought I'd make this one a little bit short. So again, I skewed this a little bit, made some variations to that. I put all-purpose baking mix. And now to be consistent, since I'm using Roboto here, I'm using a Roboto condensed bold, I should probably use this in Roboto condensed bold, or just regular condensed medium or something. I don't have to be in bold, it's just the weight. I could certainly use other things where it has Roboto, but that works well. It looks good at a small size when I zoom out. I can almost see it at this size, so it's a nice size there. So this is starting to shape up, and you know, I just want a little red, maybe a little blue at the bottom, and then maybe a nice picture of pancakes, and I'm getting there. We don't have to do a whole lot with this. We could throw pop dots in there if we want, but we don't have to. We could throw an outline on here and a drop shadow, and that could be enough. Remember, the original that we're going from, it looked really crappy, you know, this thing. So, and it had all those horrible things on it. So we're looking to improve that and get a nice looking packaging going on here. We're using the right colors. So this is off to a good start. So this is part 2. I'm going to stop here. I'm exploring some other typefaces before I get into, you know, drawing shapes and rectangles and things like that. And we could probably get something together by the next video. By part 3, I should have this laid out and maybe be ready to take that into Photo P to start doing some effects on and start working with some images, some pancakes or muffins, whatever the hell you want to put in there that might work in there, that we could kind of, you know, interplay in there. And remember, when you save a Figma file, and remember when you save down a Figma file, a local file, and you open it up in Photo P, all the layers will be intact. So we'll have all this stuff here. So we'll go and make sure we name everything correctly. We'll call this Jiffy logo. If I'm going to use that, I have other options here, but I don't want to spend a whole other video editing some other logo. You know, it's just one idea. You may have other ideas. You may try something else. You may want to work with that font, with the whatever font that is. Atma, that's Atma font. There's a lot of good fonts here. You may have found other ones that I didn't notice as I was looking through Google Fonts. So that's where I'm at, and I'm going to stop here. We'll see you in part 3, and we'll start building up our layout minus whatever image we have in there, and then we'll get ready to take that to Photo P and start building this up and having a nice kind of package redesign of the Jiffy box.